My name is Jonathan Becker, and this is Revealed Through Masking, a podcast created with the intention of sharing what I've learned over the past 3 decades as a master mask maker, master teacher of performance, performer, director, maker, and guy going through a never-ending existential crisis. This podcast is intended for actors, dancers, teachers, mask makers, sculptors, theater creators, storytellers, poets, artists from all walks of life, and those who like looking beneath the surface, or better said, those who wish to unmask the world around them to gain insight. Hopefully, I'll be able to share clearly with you some valuable information and the poetry that has led me to a greater understanding. The mask, of course, will always be the vehicle from which those understandings come. The title of this episode is The Self Unmasked. I was listening to an interview I did a while back and was reminded of why it is that I'm an artist in the theater. Why it is that I can't really survive without the creative world in which the artist lives. I've tried many times to escape the arts. I tried once to be the director of marketing for a company that constructed and maintained artificial wetlands for the purification of industrial and municipal wastewater. I got the job because I was bilingual in French and English. And I managed to get away with it because I was able to act like a marketing guy. I could memorize scientific jargon and make those words sound like I knew what I was talking about. I tried for a while to work full-time as a surface specialist, a plasterer, and a faux finisher for a contractor that specialized in restoration and specialty projects. In the beginning of this job, I was able to look like I knew what I was doing long before I actually had skills. There have been many other jobs along the way in which I managed to create the illusion that I was really good at them and liked doing them at the same time. I've always wound up back in the theater, though. I find my way back on purpose or get drawn back into this work as a theater artist because this work is the only place where I'm constantly confronted with the challenge of me. I have to constantly be reaching for a deeper understanding of myself, as well as an understanding of my relationship to others in order to succeed or create anything of integrity. It is the reach to understand the bigger question of, what does it mean to be human? Why create work? Why is the work important? How do we create understanding among peoples? How does one create clarity in communication? Are there universals as concerns the human experience? How do we provoke empathy in others? What, ultimately, is the reason for being? I know these are big questions. It truly is the constant reach to find answers that fuels the creative work and that ultimately keeps me working in the arts. As Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." It seems to me, to be a successful artist, one must be awake to life and always dreaming. This particular podcast on self was provoked by some questions posed by a former student. His questions, which I have paraphrased here, are: how does one get to know oneself? How do you know yourself? How do you use your self-knowledge in the work? How do we apply that? How can you, the teacher, see students are not using themselves in their work? Aren't they the ones doing it? Isn't that self? Do we unwittingly use self when working? These are great questions, and hopefully there will be some inspired information as well as information that inspires in this episode. I might even try to provide some tangible answers to the questions posed instead of my typical glib Socratic response. How do you know what you know is knowing enough about the knowledge that you know? I will proceed with this podcast in 3 sections. In the first, I will talk briefly on what self-awareness means, why it's important for everyone, and how we go about being self-aware in our daily lives. In the second section, I will talk about how the theater mask leads us towards self-awareness as both an audience and as performers, and how that awareness can be applied poetically in the sharing of story. And lastly, I'll delve into actor training as concerns the journey of self-discovery, how various practitioners approach the topic, and then how we apply those understandings. Self-awareness. Why it's important. In the podcast, Behind the Mask of Perspective, I talked about how one's personal perspective could be described as the life experiences one has had being gathered in a hut that is carried around and inhabited. We see out of the hut through the windows colored by our experiences. If we can grow to understand how those experiences have formed us, what our perspective is, we might then say we are more self-aware. Being self-aware is knowing why we feel what we feel, why we behave in certain ways, how our perspectives have been formed, why we believe what we believe, what our triggers are, being able to define our strengths and weaknesses, being conscious of what we're good at and areas we need serious improvement in, how we appear to others, our physical tics and individual ways of moving, why our body responds to the world as it does. The more understandings we have based on the list above, the more we can consciously use the knowledge in the creative act, and the clearer our understanding will be of how we are seen by others. In our daily life, a higher level of self-awareness allows for growth and improvement, as well as more self-confidence. As artists, a heightened awareness allows us to exploit our humanity in a way that provokes and inspires others. And certainly this whole notion of being outside the box that we are always told we must be as artists and creators relies on having a heightened enough sense of self-awareness, allowing one to see how one is unique and different from the others. And of course, the absurd problem of it all is that we are constantly growing, learning, and experiencing, so we are constantly changing, thus making this quest for an understanding of self a never-ending one. Let's talk about the mask as relates to self-awareness. We ask, how does the mask help us develop a heightened level of self-awareness, and how do we make use of our self-knowledge in support of the mask? I'd like to interject here that later on we will use the idea of character as interchangeable with the mask. So for the actor, it could also be asked, how do we make use of our knowledge of self in support of the character? As always, I'll start with the neutral mask, since it is the mask that reveals us to us, or at least that is its purpose as a teaching tool. As I mentioned in the last podcast, the neutral mask is a being that exists only in the present. It has no past experiences and thus no perspective from which it sees and acts. Its hut is empty, one could say. In an attempt to support the neutral mask, the actor is challenged with dropping away everything that they are in order to simply be in the present moment. The reach to see the moment only as the moment is, not as we interpret it to be, but as it exists in absolute singular simplicity. The attempt to exist without our personal perspective, built on our life's experiences, teaches the actor what those experiences mean, how they affect the present discovery, and at the same time allows for an understanding of how others experience the discovery of a single moment. Someplace at the very foundation of every experienced moment is a universally shared experience. An understanding of universality allows the artist to create work that can be experienced by many and allows for the artist to understand how an audience or a viewer will react to the work on a variety of levels. The neutral mask, because of the demands of its architectural form, insists on a physical body that is also devoid of a past. The body needed to support it is one that walks through the world for the first time. The mask then reveals how our lives have shaped our personal physical instrument, its life rhythms, its shapes, and its relationship to the space around it. This is revealed because there must also be a reach to walk through the world with a body of calm. To walk with a body that travels only in one direction, only in the direction that it is going. A body that is devoid of the misuse of the past, and one that operates with absolute economy and singularity in face of each physical task. It is a body that moves with the noise of personality absent. Next, in the teaching sequence comes the larval mask. The larval mask is a mask intended to inspire play. The masks are in a stage of early development, hence the term larval. They are the toddlers of the mask world. Here's where we begin to make use of the experiences inside the hut of both the actor and the given mask. Here's where the actor must start using their own awareness of self to bring the masks to life. One must first know how one reacts to the world before bending one's personal reactions and discoveries made into those of a being that sees the world from a slightly more singular perspective. Because of the early stage of development and the childlike, playful qualities of the larval mask, the actor has a great deal of freedom to engage in random and ever-changing relationships and activity. The larval is intended to reveal to the actor how they solve problems from a playful and inventive point of view. For example, all of the larval masks I play get really competitive and are constantly changing the rules in order to win. But this is me and my approach to life. The larval masks are also the first place in the learning process where the actor is required to engage in the mechanics of constantly sharing discoveries with the audience so that everyone is on the same journey. Or said another way, the audience at this stage is allowed to experience through the mask the journey the mask is on. The character mask is where the sophisticated and conscious application of self comes into play. For simplicity's sake, let's use a character mask that is focused on a singular state of being rather than on one that is more complex. Let us use the mask of fear. The mask of fear will have an expressive quality that suggests a being that approaches the world through fear. The lines and planes of the mask will suggest this is the approach the mask takes. For this mask, there is a past that has created the form it sees the world through. It is said that our life's experiences form us into who we are. This is the same for the mask. In order to bring the mask to life, the actor must be connected to their own fears. The actor must be self-aware enough to know why they are afraid of certain situations, people, and things. The actor must use their own self-knowledge to create the reasons why the mask looks into the world in the way that it does. The question of why one would be afraid of everything must be answered if it is to be personalized, brought to life, and played honestly. And then, when the actor playing the mask of fear experiences love, or joy, or pride, or lust in the mask, those can be played with equal honesty. If the actor is honest in these reactions or feelings, the mask will still be present, and now the audience sees the mask of fear fall in love. They see the mask of fear, lust, and the poetic juxtaposition now is relatable on a profoundly universal level. The actor also learns here that fear is the mask being worn. So the actor doesn't need to always play they are afraid, because the mask is always present when another action or emotional need is present. The audience can see the fear when the actor is purely playing love. This is where the actor becomes conscious of how the audience is experiencing the mask, its discoveries, and the honest play happening in support of it all. Here is where the actor can play with an understanding that everyone has fear, everyone loves, and everyone fears what love brings with it. Here is where the actor can make strong singular choices in order to more successfully provoke empathy in the viewer. I know I fear failure. I know I fear rejection. To fall in love is a great risk. To be proud of an accomplishment carries risk. To lust after something or someone carries with it risk. I assume this is the same for others. I assume they will understand the journey of fear moving through the world, experiencing every discovery with fear, or at the very least caution and hesitance. I also know that people fear for a reason. So I must connect to mine, and then connect mine to the mask that I am supporting. The mask of fear must lead me to an understanding of my own fears, so that I can choose which ones or which one is the one I will use to support the mask. The more specific I become in my choices, the more singular I am, the more universally understood my choices will be. The viewer will invent their own reasons for why the mask fears, because they too fear. Once arrived at in simplicity and singularity, the play of the mask will reveal to the audience their own personal fears as they experience the discoveries of the journey the mask is on through the mask. And so empathy is provoked in the viewer. The performer and the audience become one because ultimately we are the same and share a common experience as human beings. The mask, as it relates to actor training, is our next step. I'm going to briefly talk about actor training and where the mask fits into this. Actor training in its beginning stages revolves around a guiding of the student towards self-discovery. Young actors are asked to observe others, they are asked to observe themselves, they are asked to journal so that they might record their perspective on the world and have it in a form they can clearly see. Young actors are asked to engage in emotional memory or emotional recall exercises so that they might experience in a public forum their own personal emotional responses to cathartic experiences. These exercises are important because they reveal to us how we react and where those reactions take us inwardly. Since we have to use ourselves to support the mask or the character, then we must know how we exist in the world before making the transfer to creating or supporting another based on us. At the very beginning of the training, one often engages in exercises of recreating daily life. This is an exercise in which one creates 5 to 15 minutes of one's actual day and lives that out in front of an audience in real time. It is not intended to tell a story or be a performance. It is just daily life in front of a public eye. We want to know what the difference between daily life and theater is, and we want to know how we navigate our day-to-day from a personal point of view within the exercise. The second step of the exercise is to teach those 5 to 15 minutes of the day to another and then watch them live it out in real time, one's personal experiences. There are a number of recreation exercises like this that are intended to awaken a deep level of self and how we are in the world, so that we can make very specific and singular choices based on a reality that we already possess. One could say that when we arrive at a very specific singular choice that belongs to a particular dramatic moment, that we are playing the mask of ourself. Yet it has now become the character because of its singular specificity. The mask becomes a prominent tool in the training because it requires the mechanical act of sharing discoveries made through action with an audience so that they might experience through the mask or through the character the journey the character is on. The mask teaches the actor to support the character while creating an emotional journey in the audience. The emphasis becomes on how the audience feels rather than how the actor is feeling. In this case, the actor must manifest their personal feeling as if they belonged to the mask. The mask also reveals to us when the actor is not using themselves to support the moment they are in or to support the mask itself. When the actor is imposing their good idea, imitating another, or playing a cliché, the form of the mask dies. Its expressive qualities freeze in the lie. An ingenuous reaction or action taken seems foreign to the viewer because it doesn't belong to the specific experiences of the actor playing in the moment. Without the singular specific choice of an honest personal response, the truth of the moment is lost. It isn't possible to see the world from inside someone else's hut. We can certainly empathize with another's experiences, but we can only understand and make use of our own to move successfully through life. The mask becomes us, and we must become the mask. We are the mask. It's just that the mask is not us. Lecoq, of course, said, there are three masks. The mask that we are, the mask that we play, and the mask that we have in common. There you have it, another episode of Revealed Through Masking. If you're interested in acquiring a mask, visit theater-masks.com. The studio can be found at www.theater-masks.com. If you're interested in a workshop, visit the North American Laboratory for the Performing Arts. The schedule for current workshops can be seen online at www.thenalpa.com. That's THENALPA.com. Special thanks to Purple Planet Music for providing the music in the podcast, and a special thanks to my mom, because one should always thank their mother. Thanks, Mom.